All right, good evening. Miamisburg School Board meeting. We are in, actually, all the way started a few minutes ago, about an hour ago. So we are on section 4 currently, just coming out of a session. We are in the meeting operating, or the meeting opening, so to speak, and we are at approval of minutes. So may I have a motion for the approval of minutes for the regular board meeting held October 20th, 2022, and the special board meeting held, work session held on November 7th, 2022.
I move for the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 20th and the special board meeting held on November 7th of 2022.
Motion by Mr. Toadvine.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lewis. Do I have any questions or comments in regards to those two meetings? Hearing none, may I have a roll call? Mr. Espy.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Next in the agenda is the approval of the financial report, October 31st, 2022. May I have a motion for the financial report?
I move for the approval of the financial report dated October 31st, 2022.
Motion by Mrs. Neese,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Daffler. Mr. Espy.
No large changes to note. I'm going to be talking about the 5-year forecast a little bit later, so nothing of great swings to report on.
Okay. All right. Hearing that, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
Now we're at recognition of citizens, staff, and students. And first is the district student of the month. Mr. Bryce, would you like to come forward? You can,
You're right there.
you can.
No shyness there, is there?
Right here if you want.
And then look at the audience. Oh,
Hey, Bryce, you get a new pair of glasses?
those are nice.
Those are sharp. I like you. They look good on you.
Those
Do
are
a
cute.
presentation on you, and then we will do a couple other things, but go ahead.
The Miamisburg October District Student of the Month is Bryce Bonner. Bryce was nominated by Meadowview Principal Susan Woods, Administrative Assistant Regina Wall, and Counselor Jody Hall. They said, Bryce brings to life the Meadowview responsibilities and has done so since he was a kindergarten student during the 2017-2018 school year, truly modeling what it means to be a Star Musketeer. Leader, kind, caring, role model, compassionate, hardworking, respectful, and positive are all words Meadowview teachers and staff have used to describe Bryce. It is without a doubt this list of descriptors could go on and on and on. As a Meadowview Star Musketeer, Bryce consistently demonstrates being a responsible role model. During his 4th grade year, he served as a kindergarten helper, guiding students to their classroom each morning. In addition, during 4th grade, Bryce served as a morning announcer for the Meadowview Morning Minute for the first quarter and then continued on as the daily producer of the show for the rest of the year. Recently, Bryce was recognized by a parent for his behavior during a bus incident on the morning of September 21st. It was reported that as soon as the incident occurred, Bryce immediately went to the bus driver and asked how he could help. He assisted with the younger students until additional support arrived. This recent behavior is the perfect example of Star Musketeer qualities, most of all being a responsible role model. In addition to being a responsible role model, Bryce works together with other students on safe solutions as a member of the Meadowview Safety Patrol. At dismissal each day, Bryce monitors the bus rider dismissal process, ensuring students walk safely to buses. Bryce treats others, adults and students, with respect throughout the school day. The area in which this has been a strength over the years is on the playground. It is not uncommon to monitor recess and hear Bryce using kind words, displaying appropriate sportsmanship, and including others. As a learner, Bryce works to the best of his ability each and every day in all content areas. He understands the importance of doing well in school and perseveres when faced with challenging tasks. It has been a pleasure watching Bryce arrive at Meadowview as a young kindergarten student and grow into a fine young man. There is no doubt Bryce Bonner will continue on in life as a well-rounded individual.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations, Bryce.
Bryce, congratulations on behalf of the Board of Education and myself. You're welcome. We have a medallion for you. Tell me about any special people you brought along tonight. Well, thank you for bringing them along, and thank you for sharing Bryce with us. How exciting. And I heard a story about that day on the bus, too. I heard he actually went up and asked the bus driver if he was okay. That's awesome. And helped a couple little kindergarten students, so we appreciate that a lot. So thank you. Can I shake your hand? Congratulations. I think I'd like to congratulate you.
Congratulations.
And then can you have your Mrs. Wilson get a picture? How's that sound?
Congratulations. Great job.
Mrs. Woods, you want to come on up? Here, we're staying right here. We're going to get a picture with Mrs. Woods. And then we'll get a picture of your family. So, what grade is your sister?
They have a very good relationship.
Well-played young man. Stay up there.
You guys will get a picture. I'll just step out. Is it okay if we put you on social media?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure you'll get lots of likes. Yes.
She's tall.
Thank you. Congratulations.
So it seems like you've done really well, and that maybe it's time to come out. What do you think?
Have a good night, Bryce.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next on tonight's agenda is Mound Elementary School presentation. We have Miss Diane Keller and Denise McGill.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. So we're going to talk to you just a little bit about morning meeting. And this is something that I see some heads nodding like you've had some familiarity with it, which I'm glad. But this has been a district kind of initiative that we've been working hard with as a group of schools to make sure that morning meetings are happening consistently in all of our elementary classrooms. It's also been what has been part of our what's called SEL roadmap, so social emotional learning. The roadmap that Clarissa Fulkerson and Colleen Green helped our team develop was for us to make sure that we were doing morning meetings intentionally every day in our classrooms. And that already was occurring in lots of classrooms, and especially in Mrs. McGill's classroom, that was already happening before that was kind of placed as an expectation. But as a staff, we did a retreat after the end of the school year, and we put some time and energy focused on what could morning meetings look like, what are some strategies and ideas, because it can look different in each room, and so it's okay for each teacher to kind of put his or her flair on the morning meeting. We recently surveyed all of our students as part of that panorama data, but as a district, we created one for younger students since Panorama doesn't have one for kindergarten through second. And one of the questions that we added this year at Mound was the effectiveness of morning meetings. Do you like having morning meetings? Is that a good way to start your day? And we had about 90% respond yes a lot. Their choices were yes a lot, no not at all, or sometimes. And so we had a great response from our students that this is a great way to start their day. So I brought Mrs. McGill because I thought we had a little fun with you last year, you might remember, when we shared about our Go for Greats. And so we just wanted to have a little bit of fun with you too about morning meetings. I'm going to have her share a little what that looks like in her classroom, and then we have just a 2-minute video to share with you.
So you're going to be my first graders, okay? And when I start my morning meeting, we all sit in a circle, which I don't expect you to get up and do that, but we do sit in a circle on the floor, and we always start with a breathing exercise. So I would like for you guys to follow along with me, and we are going to do a hot chocolate breathing. Okay, so you are going to hold your visualize, and we talk about visualizing. So you're going to visualize you have a cup of hot chocolate in your hand. I do allow my students to keep their eyes open, or if they prefer, they can close their eyes if that's more relaxing for them. So you can do whichever you prefer. So what we do is we breathe in for 4 through our nose, and I count, and I hold, and then we hold for 2 seconds, and then we breathe out for 4. So
Like you're smelling it,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
you're smelling
so you
the
are,
hot
as
chocolate.
you're breathing in, I say to them, smell it, hold it, now blow on it and cool it down.
So we're gentle blowing now.
So it's very gentle,
Splattering.
and all of our breathings, they know it's very slowly in, it's very slowly out. So, you don't have to do it again, but that's the idea. We do it 5 times every morning. That's how we start. The kids love it. I have a whole ring of different breathing things. They have their favorites. They have the ones they don't love. Some are sitting, some are standing, some are laying. They love bear breathing, which is like a bear in hibernation. They love that one. So I kind of just let them. But I was telling Mrs. Keller that this week my students have started coming up with their own. So Monday, one of my little firsties said, well, Mrs. McGill, I think we need to do snow breathing. Okay, well, I don't have one for that. What would that look like for you? And she said, well, it snowed all weekend. And she's like, so can we just do? And I said, well, absolutely. So that's what we did. So I showed them, and that's how we did it, and I counted. And then a couple days later, one of them said they wanted to do turkey breathing. I said, well, again, I don't have one for that, so tell me what that would look like. So anyway, so we have a lot of fun with that, and now I'm starting to see them coming up with some ideas on their own, which I think is fantastic. You know, they're thinking outside that box instead of me constantly saying the same ones. So so that's how I start my morning meeting. It's always with the breathing, and if I don't, I get it. Let me tell you, they will let me have it. The second thing that I do is I ask a question of the day, you know, and it can be anything. I have a ring with different questions of the day. Sometimes we've been working on, this is National Bullying Week, Anti-Bullying Week. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So a couple of days, my morning question has been, you know, what would you do? You know. So we have a talking piece, and this is our talking piece, and it's called Zigzag. And you're only allowed to talk if you have zigzag in your hand. And so I got to a point where I couldn't remember who had a chance to start, so now I just go in number order, you know. So if it's your day to start, you start. And if you want to answer the question, fantastic. And if you don't, you have the option to pass, and just say pass, and you just pass it on. There's no questions asked, no repercussions, nothing. At the beginning of the year, there was a lot more passing going on. And I felt that it was really good for me in forming those relationships with the students, because I had one little boy that passed every day. So after about 2 weeks, I had just a little private conversation with him. He just wasn't comfortable, you know. So we talked a little bit. He never passes now. So it was just a good, you know, opportunity to build that relationship with him. So, but yeah.
I think one other cool thing is that we have partnered each classroom teacher with another staff member. So a support staff member could be a special areas teacher, could be the reading teacher, could be counselor, etc.
Yeah.
And they are partnered that way, so Mrs. McGill has Mrs. Mesta, our reading specialist. The two of them then can connect to say, seems like Laura came in not feeling maybe the best, or didn't she seem a little off?
Yeah.
And the other might say, oh, I talked to her, I know what happened.
We'll talk
Or
later.
if there's a need to pull a kiddo out because they're upset about something, there's another adult left then in the room to handle. Or if Mrs. McGill is
If
absent,
I'm absent, I can say, Mrs. Meston knows how to do it, she'll lead it, she'll get it started, the kids can finish it at this point, you know, they know what to do. But, yes, I love having the partner, because I think our question yesterday was, if you could travel anywhere you wanted to go, where would you go? Well, Mrs. Mesta always goes first, because she is a reading tutor, so she has to scoot on out quickly. So she said she wanted to go to Italy. And so then we got into a conversation about, well, can I go with you? And, you know, the kids just thought that was hysterical. So today I was asked, well, did you guys go on your vacation? I'm like, it took me a minute to register, and then I was like, oh, honey, if we were going to Italy, we'd still be on the way. So, but yes. So that's how I do it. We sometimes do a quote of the day. My students' favorite quote of the day so far this year is, everyone makes mistakes. That's why pencils have erasers. And every time I make a mistake, which is multiple times a day, the students say, it's okay, that's why pencils have erasers, you know. So we just try to keep things on a very positive, you know, we don't give up, we just keep trying, we persevere, you know, those kind of things. So those are all things that we talk about in morning meeting. So, yeah.
so you've heard from adults what we think. Our short 2-minute video here will let you hear from a few kiddos on why they think morning meeting is a good way to start their day.
Let's see if I can turn it up. That's my class.
Yes, that is.
I'm all the way up too. So.
Wait, just.
Tim, do you have any volume back there?
I'm sorry.
Return again. Okay. Oh, there. It's all done
Already.
We got Could we start it over?
Yeah, I'm gonna
start
start.
over.
I'll start it over.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bentley, and I like morning meetings because I get really comfortable with them, and I can just like learn more about people.
Hi, I'm Camilla, and I like morning meetings because I'm really comfortable with them, and sometimes some of the questions I answer with Hispanic culture, some of my Hispanic culture.
Love that. Kindergarten.
I like morning meetings because I learn more about people and what they like and what they don't like. Hi, my name is Keelan, and I like morning meetings because I feel like it's a great way to start the day, and somehow it helps me get ready for the rest of the day. I'm Ramona, and I like morning meeting because you get to share your ideas with the class, and you get to fidget around with the talking piece that your teacher picks out. My name is Amir. My favorite part about morning meeting is the breathing. Breathing because it makes me relax.
Guess who his teacher is?
Yeah.
My name is Stephanie, and I like about morning meeting is sharing my ideas. Morning meeting is great.
So that is concludes our presentation, but we do have one little gift for everybody since it's Thanksgiving and gratitude and appreciation month. We have some few thank you notes from some of our kiddos.
Thank you.
There's nothing better than that,
Oh,
right?
sweet, yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciation
Right.
of what you do. We talked about
Thank you.
your role as, you're welcome, your role in serving and to show them appreciation. So thank you very much.
Thanks for
having
Tell
us.
them thank you.
Thank you very much. Denise, you did say you were staying tonight, right? For the rest of the meeting?
I'll see you at Kroger.
Okay.
Have a good evening, Denise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.
Bye.
Next on tonight's agenda is consent agenda. A on the consent agenda is approval of overnight extended student trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight extended student trips. Miamisburg High School swim and dive team. This would be Bowling Green University in December 16th and 17th. B is a presentation and acceptance and consolidated school report nutrition services 2022 compliance report. It is recommended by the superintendent to approve the consolidated school report nutrition services 2022 compliance report. C is approval of the class of 2023 early graduates, Miamisburg High School. Michael Black, Michael Black, principal of the Miamisburg High School, has recommended Caitlin Ford and Allie Napier for early graduation pending satisfactory completion of all state and local requirements. D is the approval of members to serve on the Miamisburg Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The Board of Education recommends Kelly Lee Marker and Shannon Rupert to serve on the Miamisburg Park and Recreation Advisory Board for a 2-year term dated 1/1/23 to 12/31/2024. E is the approval recognition of organization and club. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following organization or club: Culture Appreciation Club. F is the approval of board member trainings. In accordance with the board policy, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following request for training as offered by the Montgomery County Educational Service Center. February 11th, 8:30 to 3:30 annual board meeting, Members Institute. Ann Neese, Chris Amsler, Corey Daffler, Tim Lewis, and Dale Toadvine. G is the approval of consent agenda A through F. It is recommended by the Board of Education to approve items A through F. May I have a motion for those items, please?
I'll move for the approval of consent items A through F.
Motion
Second.
by Mr. Lewis and seconded by Mr. Toadvine. Going back to A is self-explanatory in regards to a swim and dive team meet, Bowling Green. B, do we want to?
Yeah, this is just an annual report that has to be board approved. We are asked for this document when we're audited.
Okay. Any questions in regards to that? Hearing none. C, early graduates. We have 2 graduates going through.
Yes, just something that happens. So
Yep.
exciting.
Parks and Recreation.
That's a continuous.
Yeah.
They've served in the past.
Yep. Organizational club.
Yes, the Ways and Means Committee, we approved that last year. So I believe that this is kind of just a continuation of like their club and their goals for the year. So nothing new in terms of that.
They also didn't have a budget before, so this allows us to establish a budget, like a standalone budget account for them. And so we'll be bringing that budget to you next month to approve so they can have expenditures and revenues. But it's at no cost to the board.
Right. And then F is just a board member training offered by BHBA in February. So, any questions in regards to that? Hearing none, may I have a roll call?
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
6 is human resources agenda items. A is the approval of personnel reports certificated and classified. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel reports. B is the approval of the personnel report certificated, classified, supplemental, and stipend. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel report: certificated, classified, supplemental, and stipend. Within both instances, employment within the Miamisburg City School District is contingent upon the candidate submitting to and passing a BCII and FBI criminal record check in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code and pre-employment drug screening in accordance with the adopted board policies. C is the approval of the Ohio School Counselor Evaluation System. It is recommended that the superintendent approve the following administrator to be an OSCES evaluator, and that would be Miss Rebecca Hubler. D is approval of human resources A through C. May I have a motion for those items, please?
I move for the approval of human resources items A through C.
Motion by Mr. Daffler,
I second it.
seconded by Mrs. Neese. Steve usually does the personnel reports in
Sure.
regards to those, and he didn't really mention anything to me in regards to we were out of balance or.
No, I mean, just the normal recommendations that we have every month. And then Mrs. Huber just has received her training so that she may evaluate our school counselors as well. So,
Good. All right. Any questions in regards to those three items? Hearing none, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
7 is agreements and contracts. A is the approval agreement for a satellite program between the Miami Valley Career Technology Center and the Miamisburg City School District. It is recommended by the superintendent to enter into an agreement with the Miami Valley Career Technology Center to implement a well-coordinated career technical education to create and operate an agricultural satellite program within the Miamisburg City Schools. B is the approval agreement with the Montgomery County Educational Service Center. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education approves a day treatment program agreement with the Montgomery County Educational Service Center for the 2022-2023 school year. C is the approval agreement between Buckeye Charters LTD and Miamisburg City Schools for the 2023 Media Arts Field Trip. Superintendent Trevor, CFO, recommended that the Board of Education approve an agreement between Buckeye Charters Incorporated and Miamisburg City Schools for the April 24, April 28th, 2023 New York City field trip. D is the approval agreement with ProLink Healthcare LLC. It is recommended by the superintendent to enter into this agreement with ProLink Healthcare LLC. E is the approval of agreement with Durolast. It is recommended by the superintendent, treasurer, CFO, and director of business to award Mark Twain Elementary School gym roof replacement projects to Durolast Roofing. F is the approval agreement with Grunder Landscaping Company. It is recommended by the superintendent and treasurer CFO for the Board of Education to approve an in-kind services agreement with Grunder Landscaping for scoreboard sponsorship at Holland Field. G, approval agreement with contracts A Alpha through F Foxtrot. May I have a recommendation for those items, please?
I move for the approval of agreements and contracts, items A through F.
Motion by Mr. Daffler.
Second.
And I believe that was seconded by Mr. Lewis, correct?
So we'll start with,
Go back to the Miami Valley Career Technology and Miamisburg City Schools on the agriculture.
sure. Well, Stacy and I met with Dr. Weldy and Rhonda, right?
Yes.
And we talked about an expansion of our satellite CTC program because last year we began our code engineering and coding classes. So basically, the CTC graciously provides a teacher, and they work in our high school as part of our staff, and they service our students so that it could be an option for students who don't want to spend their entire day at the CTC, but also get that rich programming. So it's a great partnership. So this year we're going to expand. We're hoping to expand for next year to have some agriculture classes, and as part of that plan, we'd like to even infuse a little bit of landscaping because we think that is a needed skill for our area and for our students to have exposure to that. So those classes will have a mix of agriculture, but also some landscaping courses as well, because we have some local partners that would love to expand that even further. So we're looking forward to having an additional CTC program next year with all of your blessing and vote. So we're hoping that goes through. And then the item B, it's a contract for a student to be placed in a learning center. Item C, that is for our media arts field trip. This is just the contract for the charter buses.
Yep.
Item D, ProLink Healthcare is SLP services. We had one of our speech language pathologists have her baby a little earlier than expected. That's exciting. So we are without someone, so they can help provide some services in her absence. So it's just a contracted service there. And then Duralast agreement, that's for our Mark Twain. That's part of our strategic plan and through the finance and facilities, and so that was all budgeted and prepared for out of PI. And then, I don't know, John, do you want to pull up the Grunder landscaping?
I can speak on this.
Attachment, do you want to show them the picture of the plan?
So this is an agreement to show specifically what's going to be going on with at our athletic complex. So as you can see here, they're going to be doing some really nice landscaping as we go into Holland Field. And this is an in-kind donation. So this is part of, essentially having their name on the scoreboard, but this is part of that in-kind donation.
And these are right outside of the athletic entrances at the corner of our building.
Is that going to be like graded a little bit because of the
The runoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, making sure it's all contained and it doesn't come down.
The bottom is low, it's gravel.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the slope, and
Okay.
then there's mulch up toward the top with the
Okay.
with the plants
Yeah.
in there.
Gotcha. Yep, no, look good.
And I think those are all the
Mhm.
items.
I would remiss Joe if I didn't ask if you wanted to comment in regards to the agriculture and
No, I think it's just an extension of the partnership that we have between CTC and Miamisburg, and I think it's a great opportunity for all of us. And as Laura was saying, we have a local company. As far as the landscaping goes, it's very very excited about this, and we very much like to participate, even along the lines of equipment and that.
Right.
So it's a real good partnership.
Good. Thanks. Anybody else have any comments or concerns in regards to those items? Hearing none, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
We are down to the financial agenda items. Authorization, A is the authorization for amendment to the appropriations and certificate of estimated resources. It is recommended by the treasurer CFO that the appropriations and a certificate of estimated resources be amended as listed in the attached reports. B is the authorization to request advance of tax settlement 2022 collection year 2023. Treasurer CFO is hereby authorized to request advances on 2022 tax settlements from the county auditor. C is the approval of the district 5-year forecast for November 2022, fiscal year 23. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the fiscal year 2023, November 2022, 5-year forecast as submitted by or to the Ohio Department of Education. D is the approval of the financial items A alpha through C Charlie. May I have a motion for those financial items?
I move for the approval of financial items A through C.
Motion by Mr. Dale Toadvine.
A second.
We're going to second it by Mr. Tim Lewis. Mr. Espy.
On item A, it's pretty much just business as usual, just amending the appropriations as we need to with just individual budget lines, as well as our expected revenue lines on the certificate. B just allows us to control our cash flow and request advances on our tax settlements. So we get those monthly from Montgomery County. And then C, I'll go ahead and do a presentation on the 5-year forecast. I do want to talk a little bit about it. This is required by Ohio Department of Education. It's also required through Ohio Revised Code and Ohio Administrative Code. Districts are now required to submit these by November 30th. It used to be October, but districts would essentially submit a October forecast and then potentially have a levy on in November, which would impact that forecast. So that's been changed to November and also May 31st, and those both are required. There can be amendments throughout the year, and I actually believe we did one in February of this year for our bond pricing. It's important to note that this forecast is only for the general fund, and as we look, we have several different funds here that I've outlined, but the forecast is outlining the general fund, the 001 fund, which is what we call as the board fund, and we can also look at it as like a savings account for the district. I do, however, want to talk about ESSER funds because they do impact our forecast. We look at the amount of funds that came into the district in the 507 and 510 funds, $14.5 million. And those were used for salaries and benefits, addressing learning loss. The way we address learning loss specifically was full-day kindergarten, as well as some tutors that we brought in that weren't, essentially in the district before, on the books before. Also, capital improvements such as HVAC. And then the 510 fund was pretty much for PPE and connectivity for e-learning. These come into play later because they're kind of masking some trends that we have in the forecast, and so I just wanted to bring them up. I also wanted to bring up that this $14.5 million, when you look at our expected expenditures for this fiscal year, equate to 26%. And so something to think about here is if we were talking about our personal finances, if we did not have 26% of expenses, if we had a 26% holiday this year on our personal finance items, unless we change how we're living or what we're doing, it's pretty easy to say that those 26% expenditures are going to come back in future years. Something to also be noted with ESSER and coronavirus relief funds, or actually just specifically ESSER, we were given funds to be able to stretch out over 3 years. So it's not just in 1 year, but this is just a really good way, I think, to see the impact of what those ESSER dollars are doing. I wanted to look at the abbreviated forecast for May 2022. So we had a lot of factors going on here because we knew we had the renewal, or not really the renewal, but the new packaged levy that was essentially taking existing emergency and existing substitute levies and packaging them into one continuous levy. So we had that difference when you look at the bottom in the red and then the yellow right below that. We could have potentially been negative $18 million had we not been able to rely on those funds. And then at the top was showing the deficit spending that we were in when we look at our revenues and expenditures from 2022 forward. It's important to note this because if you look at fiscal year 26, even with those levies passing, or that levy passing, we were still looking at a negative $1.7 million shortfall in cash in 26. And I bring this up because when we look now coming forward at November 22, if you look at 26 now, at the very bottom, we're now at a $3 million positive cash balance. So a lot of things have really played into that. We had some additional resignations and retirements. We've also just been able to control spending and back down some spending. And we've also been doing that while dealing with inflationary measures that have been pretty substantial. And so now we push the forecast out to 27. We are still looking at a negative cash balance, but now we've been able to push that negative cash balance out an entire year, which I think is fairly substantial for the leadership in the district and also just your oversight as board members. So I did want to point that out. That to be said, we're still in deficit spending, so we do need to be mindful of that, continuing to monitor that, and making some decisions going forward about what we're going to do to look at that. Unfortunately, actually, I would say fortunately, we're not creating widgets. We're not creating things. We're creating individuals, right? And so we can't raise the price on people because we're not selling them. But we are taking in revenue, and that revenue is fairly flat or fairly predictable. So when you look at the expenditures versus the revenues, we just have to be mindful that really the control that we have is much more on the revenue side than the expenditure side, although we do continue to be as frugal as possible without cutting into services that the district is providing. This is a visual representation of that cash balance. So you'll notice in fiscal year 27 we do go negative, and you can notice that the line does trend down each and every year starting in 2023 as we're in deficit spending. When we look at this revenues at a glance, you'll remember last time we had different shaded areas on the top in 24 through 27 that represented the unexpected, we didn't know what was going to happen with the levy, and now that's all been counted in, and you'll see a slight uptick, and that is just due to reappraisal and revaluations that happen every 3 years. I should say reappraisals happen every 6 years and reevaluations happen every 6 years, but offset it's every 3 years that we look at. This is our real estate revenue when you break it down. So when you look at 22, fiscal year 22 is 53.8%, and in 27 it's projected to be 54.9% of our revenue. So very substantial to our district, and this is where we're seeing property taxes come in. I did want to bring up collection rates. We're looking and trending very close to 99.5 and 99.6% in our collection rates, which is very good for us. Some districts are not trending as high as that. So we know that we have a fairly predictable income in terms of the delinquency rates being low. And Laura and I have had several meetings with the county treasurer too, that's doing a lot of really great things in terms of making sure that those monies are collected. Also, sorry, there's one thing I wanted to point out too. The reappraisal and revaluations, you can see them happen in 23 as a projection in 26. So you can see where these value changes happen. And when we see 85 million and 70 million, that seems like a huge amount, but we have to keep in mind that that's the actual appraised valuation increasing and not the actual assessed valuation that the district is getting. When we look at unrestricted state aid, this went down quite a bit in fiscal year 22 because of the Fair School Funding Plan. So you can see that drops down, and then likewise when you look at restricted state aid, it pops very high in 2022 and starts to come back down in 23 because of the way that the Fair School Funding Plan is phased in. When we looked at unrestricted state aid too, it's very dependent on our enrollment. And as we see here, we see that from fiscal year 21 to 22, we see that increase in students, and that's because, you know, some families were not, you know, enrolling their children elsewhere, but then they came back in 22. Also, something to be aware of is that if there was a student that was on the edge of being able to be enrolled in kindergarten early, or, you know, on time, or being able to be pushed back a year, a lot of parents were electing to do that. So that's why we see that bump in 22, but then we see a downward trend going on into 27. And I want to be clear about this. We are using live birth data to do this, but I'm also truing this up every month with our SFPR reports that we get from the state. So it's predictive analytics, but it's also using actuals. So there's a lot that goes into these numbers, but it's not purely just birth data. When we look at expenditures at a glance, you'll notice that they start to trend up in 22, 23, 24. That's because we start whittling away those ESSER funds that I talked about before. So just be, you know, kind of being aware of that. And you're going to see this trend quite a bit as we look through this. In salaries, we see that trending up. In benefits, we see it trending up. In purchase services, we actually see a couple things here. So in the red box, you'll see that there's a huge drop from 21 to 22. This is again because of the Fair School Funding Plan, where all of the open enrollment stopped being charged to us as outgoing. So our purchase services dropped. In the yellow box, you'll see it jumps quite a bit up. That's due to the inflationary measures that we've seen with a lot of the services that we purchase, whether it be, you know, transportation services, and I know we've approved several contracts for, you know, vendors for that, but also just any kind of service that we purchase. We've seen the prices shoot up. We've also seen fuel costs go through the roof as well. I wanted to also look at the Fair School Funding Plan. When you look between fiscal year 22 and 23, we made out very, very well in 22 because of those lowered purchase service costs in open enrollment. But now as the funding formula starts to take hold, we start to get more actual numbers where we're actually getting closer to being funded on our current day numbers. And so now we can see that we actually have a net decrease of 761,000. So that's something to keep in mind. Last year we were positive 1.9 million. Now we're negative 761. But we do see it start to kind of level out as we go forward.
Is that a 2.6 million difference?
So it's really like a net 1.2 million difference. If you think of we came out positive and 1.9 million in the gray in fiscal year 22, and then in fiscal year 23 we had the negative 61. So if I'm just taking 19 minus 7, I'm thinking 1.2 million. Still for the positive.
Minus or plus?
It's plus. Because we had, if you look at the gray area right here, when you look at the change in revenue, but the big change in lowered expenditures, that gives us the 1.9 net to the good. But now we've seen less revenue and more expense. That's how we come up to the 761. So I was taking this 19 or this 1.9 million and this 761,000 and just adding those together and coming up with roughly 1.2 million. I guess really what I was trying to point out here is that we came out very, very well in 22, and we are not seeing that trend continue. And these are the projections based off the forecast. So I really just highlighted these, but you'll see next year revenues go up 306,000. And I will say I have been very conservative in how I've looked at the phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan, because it's really supposed to be phased in over 6 years. We're in year 2 of it. We don't know what how that's going to be codified into law. I will say that it already is codified into law, so there really has to be something done to overthrow what's already been put in place. We don't know what those percentages are. Typically, it's been they've basically divided it in 6, and so we're seeing those increases happen year for year. So I have it maxing out at 50% right now instead of 100% on the forecast. But you'll still see that our revenues go up, and then our expenditures go down next year for a net increase of 335,000, and that's all baked into the forecast that I've brought to you. Did that answer? Any questions on that? Okay, I'll go forward. So I brought a similar graphic to you last year, or actually in May, where I was showing in May of 2021, which was the forecast. I did not file that forecast, but when you look at that 5th year, that was actually fiscal year 25, and that was projected to be a negative $7 million cash balance. When you come forward and look at November 21, the first forecast that I filed, fiscal year 26 had a negative 7.9 million cash balance. Through all the changes and discussions that we had with Cabinet and changes we were able to make in terms of looking at efficiencies with staffing, but also just how we're expending our monies, we were able to push that out to negative 1.7 million in fiscal year 26. And now that we actually are into fiscal year 23, we've now pushed out that negative cash balance essentially 2 years from the top forecast to the bottom forecast. So I think that's a definitely a trend that's looking in the right direction. Some final takeaways here. We do need to keep in mind that we were cut money in fiscal year 20 and 21. And that is affecting this forecast. It's affecting our cash balance. It affects our ability to make money through interest that is now starting to come back up. And when we look at that, we had cuts of $1.4 million over those 2 years. We are still using our ESSER funds as wisely as we can to make sure that we're being mindful of our forecast. We're still uncertain what the future funding is going to look like in fiscal year 24, really through 27. And then, we're still looking at how College Credit Plus and other items that are not even part of the Fair School Funding Plan, but the Fair School Funding Plan itself, how those are going to affect how we go forward. Are there any questions?
No, I was just wondering if you would want to tell the community, people that are listening to this, how many rainy days cash balance should we have? I mean, ideally, school districts, is it 22 or?
Typically at least 60.
60,
GFOA
okay.
says 60 days. I would feel a lot more comfortable with 90 days cash balance. We are looking good in terms of that right now, but obviously as we go out year after year, we start looking not so good shape when we get it out into fiscal year 26 and 27. And as the cash balance gets whittled away, that again, that makes it tough for us to make growth on interest of money that we can't invest because we have to have it in our accounts to keep our cash flow.
There are a couple slides here, the Fair School Funding Act, back. I think this represents two slides I want to talk about. I think you go back, hold on, two more. So we have, I think there was a slight increase of expense, or decrease in expense because fair funding, because we're not doing the, what was, yeah. Going quick,
This one?
John.
Too fast.
Yeah, you're going too fast. Go back just a couple. So this was our
Purchaser.
decrease in expenditures?
Yep.
Because of not having to pay for...
Not having to pay open enrollment going out.
Going out. So then two slides back, this benefits is going up. Is fair school funding, is this correlated? Are we benefits going up and our expenditures going down? Are we positive was that what that other slide was representing, or?
So there's a couple things in there. So when we're looking at the full day kindergarten pilot, for instance, I'm factoring that continuing. So I've got that continued to be in the forecast. So when we run out of those ESSER monies that are essentially paying it, it has to shift back to the general fund. So we're essentially, we've brought in new items that are addressing learning loss, but we're also using those ESSER funds to what we would call supplant, pay typical general fund expenses out of the ESSER funds. So as those start to erode, then we also have a projected increase of our benefits. So I'm basically using the increase that we've seen this year. And then I'm also looking at our collective bargaining agreements in terms of what they are, and then looking at what they could be in terms of increases. So I've projected 1% salary increases for our collective bargaining agreements for the entirety of this forecast. And then I've also looked at the benefits. So as you have those start to overcome that money that is the ESSER funds, that's why we start to see those increases in salaries and in benefits. And you can see that they mirror each other. The Fair School Funding Plan is essentially the phase-in of of a new funding formula. And we talked about base cost back in May. Our base cost is not fully funded right now. It's funded at 33%. So when we talked about the base cost being the bare minimum, that's the bare minimum, and we're being funded at 33% of it right now. If the Fair School Funding Plan would be completely phased in, we would be at our base cost, which is around $9,700 per student.
Have you heard if there are any champions to continue that fair funding? I know that was a worry.
Yeah, so I worked when I did the cash balance white paper with OASBO. I did present with one of the members who was kind of one of the architects of the Fair School Funding Plan, and was kind of told that there is enough motion to keep it in play, but it still remains to be seen what that phase-in is going to look like.
toes. Keeps you on your toes.
Yes. I would just like to point out that meteorologists get to forecast 5 to 10 days. I'm asked to do 5 years, so.
Very good.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments in regards to the financial report and the 5-year forecast?
Well, the weather doesn't depend on politicians either, so that even throws in makes it a little bit more difficult even yet. So.
You said it.
Hearing no other comments or questions in regards to Mr. Espy, then we will go into roll call.
Mr. Daffler?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine?
Yes.
Mr. Amsler?
Yes. Next is acceptance of donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following list of donations. All monies will be used through each school's 018 account unless indicated otherwise. Indoor recess games valued at $2,250 from Anonymous for all Mark Twain homeroom teachers. Various books valued at $125 to the Miamisburg City School District from Douglas Sherritt. Pumpkins valued at $500 from Warwick Farm to all Bear Elementary School students and 2nd and 3rd grade students at Mound Elementary School. $1,500 from the Viking Soccer Boosters for a coach stipend. May I have a motion for those donations, please?
I move to accept the list of donations.
Motion by Mrs. Neese,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Daffler, and again, we always thank for donations to our school district, and they're much appreciated. So, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Daffler?
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine?
Yes.
Mr. Amsler?
Yes. 10 is an organizational meeting information. Establish time, date for organizational board meeting. It is recommended that the organizational meeting to be held January 10th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in the PD room, Board of Education, 540 East Park Avenue, Miamisburg, Ohio. B, appointment for President Pro Tem for organizational meeting. In order to follow proper authorities, it is necessary to appoint a President Pro Tem to preside over the organization to be held January 10th. And the President Pro Tem will be myself, Mr. Amsler. Number 11, reports. We will go to Mr. Joe Isakovich with Montgomery County Joint Vocational School.
Good evening. MVCTC will be hosting the Sophomore Career Days, November 29th to December 1st, and concluding on December 1st with an open house that evening where families are invited to tour the campus, meet with staff members, and enjoy a free spaghetti dinner. Over the 3 days, we will host approximately 3,500 students from our partner school districts. At the end of November and throughout December, the district will be moving more than 90% of our staff to either their permanent location or a new temp location in the new buildings. The building spine and the 3 main wings are all expected to be fully operational for the start of the second semester. And beginning in January 2023, our attention will turn to the remodel of the west building. The MVCTC Information Technology students earn CareSource internships. The students will be part of the fall 2022 intern cohort at CareSource. And the internship is slated to be a 10-week program. And Alexander Jackson from Miamisburg will be taking part in that. Pre-apprenticeship internship program. The program highlight this month, animal care and management. And Taylor Oberer from Miamisburg will be interning at the Airway Animal Clinic in Dayton. Also, for your information, the Miami Valley Career Technology Center will host the 42nd annual Ronald McDonald House Charity Auction on December 9th from 11:30 until 2:30 on the campus. And we need donations to auction off for the auction. Items accepted for donations include clothing, toys, tools, hats, craft items, and more. And the MVCTC FFA goal for the auction is to raise $10,000 for the Ronald McDonald House. Also, the MVCT students presented at the Tip City Career Fair. Students from 7 different MVCTC programs shared their excitement and passion with various hands-on demonstrations with the 4th and 5th graders at LT Ball Intermediate School in Tip City. The program included biotechnology, HIVAC, medical lab assisting, natural resource management, precision machining, robotics and automation, and veterinary science. And William Butler from Miamisburg was one of our representatives. Also, ag students competed in the soil contest. The member of the urban soils team included students from natural resource management, and Griffin Jung from Miamisburg participated. The team placed 9th out of 19 teams. And for soil competitions, the team must analyze a soil pit site that has been dug out. The members then evaluate the dirt by completing a ribboning test. The test helps determine what kind of soil is being presented. So it gives them the opportunity to learn skills necessary in soil science and land use. Also was able to attend the OSBA convention for CTC, attended some really good sessions, and I think it was very, very worthwhile. They do a great job there. And just a quick story, Dr. Weldy and I Monday night were waiting for an Uber to go to eat at a restaurant, and we're standing in the lobby of the Hyatt. And I look up, and this tall, slender, well-dressed gentleman, dark coat, is walking towards me. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, you know, he looks familiar. And as he gets closer, I'm saying, yeah, he does look familiar. And he's looking at me, and he passes by me. And I thought, you know, that looked like John Lithgow. Yeah. So we go to dinner, and I'm sitting there with Dr. Weldy, and I go, you know, strangest thing tonight. I'm in the lobby, and I swear John Lithgow walked right by me. And I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm thinking, you know, he probably thought I wanted an autograph or something. And he says, yeah, that was John Lithgow. He said he's got the special session the next day. And I went, oh, wow. So that close. Couldn't get an autograph. Again, it was very worthwhile to attend, and looking forward to next year. Any questions or comments? If not, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Next, legislative liaison, Mr. Corey Daffler.
Still not a ton of stuff going on with the election yesterday. Sessions and committees scheduled for this week. There is a couple educational House bills that will be taken up by the Senate. that the House sent over before summer session. One is House Bill 554, which is a bill to allow former teachers whose license have lapsed to apply for a temporary 2-year license. And House Bill 606, the Seizure Safe School Bill. I'm sure I'll have much more to talk about next month.
I received an email about the licensing.
That's all I got.
They
Bring
won't
you
be
back
on.
in?
No. They won't
Board
be
member
on.
on special assignment.
Yeah, being a board member, I knew that I couldn't get my license back and get a job in the district. So. Plus, I retired from here, and I'd have to go through all that red tape, so it just wasn't worth it.
Next is Student Achievement Liaison Tim Lewis.
Well, our other building students of the month representatives from Bauer Elementary, Fatima Naji. Bear Elementary School was Rylan Manning. Jane Chance Elementary School was George Vlaskovich. Kinder Elementary School was Tristan Mick. Mark Twain Elementary School, Tessa Herr. Mound Elementary School, Dahlia Jackson. Miamisburg Middle School, Quentin Peck. And Miamisburg High School, Serenity Kessler. And that was our students of the month from each building.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the Montgomery County Drug-Free Coalition Liaison, Mr. Dale Tugline.
Okay, meeting was today, this afternoon. There was a lady named Carol Baden from Recovery Ohio was there. She discussed the John, you'll be very familiar with this, uncertainty in funds to carry out some of the necessities. The budget will be determined fairly soon, we hope, and hope there'll be money to continue recovery for those people who are striving to remain in addiction recovery. The state of Ohio has overall been pretty good concerning these matters over the years, and we hope that they continue to do that. Ms. Karen Villa from West Care, Ohio, they work with the homeless a lot, and right now they are trying very hard to get donations and money for hygiene necessities that people that are homeless can go back to the shelters with, because the shelters are really on the ledge as far as money also, and it's very difficult to rely on donations from private sector right now. That's fallen back quite a bit for these type things just here recently, because obviously people are, as you said earlier, John, people's paying more for gas, they're paying more for food, they're paying more for their homes to just keep them running, for our kids' clothing for school, and on and on and on I could go. But anyway, so if you would like to make donations to them, let me know, and my phone number's all over the place, so give me a call and I can direct you to it, what to do. Miami Valley Young Marines, very interesting group of young men. They're working very hard this year, and they've done it actually for about the past 20 years in supplying toys for tots, and that's just something that I want to put out there, that to make people aware that this exists, and it's really neat what these young men are doing. Sheriff Strick talked also, Montgomery County Sheriff Streck, and he said that tomorrow, he brought this to our attention, that tomorrow is National Adoption Day, and he said that hopefully we can continue to decrease the difficulties present that keeps children from sometimes being safe. You know, there's a lot of red tape that sometimes officers and social workers have to break through in order to sometimes put kids in places of safety. And it's you know, he's very if you don't know Sheriff Streck, he's a very good child advocate. He's a very, very strong child advocate. He's a very strong advocate for helping people in recovery. He's a really good man. Something interesting also is that funds for court proceedings to keep guns out of the hands of those who present any kind of threats to others. Sheriff Streck talked about that. And there are some groups of people who are trying their best to keep guns out of the hands of people who might be emotionally disturbed, things like that. And it seems like there keeps getting to be roadblocks put up to have other things other than just a little piece of paper that they fill out when they go to get a gun that people can lie on and everything else. And people that shouldn't be getting guns are. And if you look at the people who do bad things with guns, most of them should never have gotten in the first place. So anyway, that's something that Sheriff Streck was emphasizing, is that hopefully people put pressure on legislators and so forth to speed this up so that we can stop people from having guns that may obviously have a potential to do something wrong. He's not saying that he wants guns taken out of everybody's hands. It's just out of people who obviously should not have them. That's what he's saying. That's all.
All right, thank you. District news and information, Miss Ann Neese.
The latest Making a Difference honorees are Intervention Jane Chance Elementary School Intervention Specialist Kristen Gaylor and paraprofessional Mandy Zicafus, nominated by Dale Geyer. Mrs. Zicafus and Mrs. Gaylor reported a vehicle driving on one of the school's walking paths. This report illustrates the practice of see something, say something, and aligns with the K on the school's PBIS chart in keeping safe. Their report led to immediate action by the school crisis team and SRO Ben Albert. And then the boys cross country team wrapped up the 2022 season at the state championships this past Saturday. Competing against the 20 best Division I teams in Ohio in warm and windy conditions, the team moved up well throughout the race. When the dust settled and the scoring was completed, the team ended up in 6th place with 209 points, the best team finish in Miamisburg High School history. Scoring for the boys were Innocent Natwali, 5th place earning an All-Ohio Award and tied for highest individual placer in Miamisburg history. Kassam Cahill, 63rd, Noah Engel, 75th, Aaron Schwederman, 88th, and Gabe Moharder, 103rd. Rounding out the top 7 boys were Judah Parker and Alice Cardenas. So that was exciting. Anna Newkirk and Laura Sanatelli competed at the OHSAA AA Division I Cross Country State Championships. Anna and Lauren became just the fourth and fifth girls in Miamisburg school history to qualify to the state championships. This was also the first time in school history we had two individual qualifiers in the same year. The Miamisburg Viking Marching Band finished another historic season this past weekend at the Band of America Grand National Championship in Indianapolis, Indiana. For the second consecutive year, the band placed only one spot out of the semifinal round in a field of 100 of the best bands from around the country, receiving the third highest preliminary score in school history. The band also finished tied for sixth out of 29 bands in Class AA. This accomplishment was one of many for the band in 2022. And then the signing day, which took place last week, saw 9 Miamisburg High School athletes commit to further their academic and athletic careers at the next level. Hannah Bates, soccer at Anderson University, NCAA Division III. Braden Calcert, baseball, University of Northwestern Ohio, NAIA. Megan Gregory, soccer, Wright State University, NCAA Division I. Chandler Hoskins, softball, Marshall University, NCAA Division I. Anna Newkirk, cross-country track and field, University of Dayton, NCAA Division I. Ava Newkirk, cross-country track and field, University of the Cumberlands, NAIA. Innocent Natwali, cross-country track and field, University of Louisville, NCAA Division I. Grace Prince, soccer, Mount St. Joseph University, NCAA III. And Aaron Schwederman, cross-country track and field, Eastern Michigan University, NCAA Division I. And once again, the date was last week on November 9th, 2022.
Thanks, Mrs. Neese. Now we go to comments, and I will start off on the corner with Mr. Daffler.
I would just like to say a general thank you to all school employees, teachers, everybody. I was at a session this weekend. The gentleman talked about going back to a building that he was in and a little troubled, and there was a teacher there that was near her ending of her career and just ready to retire because she didn't feel like she had done enough. Lo and behold, he was one of her students and had been very successful. So you guys are always touching somebody, and it's a good thing. And happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, Mrs. McGill, Mrs. Keller did a very nice job on her presentation tonight. Thank you. That was very interesting, and your little video was especially fun to watch. Those little ones are they're just the coolest people in the whole world, aren't they? And if any of them ever hear this tonight, thank you for these cards. They are fabulous. I got a chance to look through some of them already. The state conference was exceptional this year, I felt. There was some presentations there that we went to together, and what Mr. Daffler just said about it being special, there were definitely some very special presentations there this year. I would like to say that I'm disappointed that Mr. Homan's not here, so I can make fun of him for for not having his keys. I would try to make it like properly taken care of, but really it wasn't his fault, but I would like to make him sound that way. Mrs. Neese and Dr. Blessing did not get home from the conference until almost midnight because of the situation that arose that the valet happened to misplace their key. So, so they had to have the car towed, and they got a free ride to the dealership to get a new set of keys made. So anyway, I thought that was kind of fun to listen to. Also, I'd like to say congratulations to all the sports teams, the band, just so many really, really great things that went on this fall in sports. One that just, Mrs. Neese, you did a good job of mentioning everybody, but Jason Hall, the goalie for the boys soccer team, he was a second team All-State this year, and that's kind of a big deal. And the boys and girls soccer teams both had exceptional seasons. The boys' record was 9-4-5, but they played the most difficult schedule that they've had ever in 44 years of having soccer here in Miamisburg. So I was at the banquet last night, and so I was kind of interested to hear all the things that were mentioned about their success. Even with that record, you would think that it was kind of like, that don't sound that fabulous, 9-4-5. I mean, 9 wins, 4 losses, and 5 ties. But the other teams were held to the lowest goals they scored. I mean, they went on and on and on, and it was for the 44 years of that program. So I just wanted to make mention of that because I thought that was very exciting to sit and listen to. There was like 9 things that was new records made this year. So.
Thank you, Mr. Thirdline. Mr. Lewis.
Well, I wanted to bring up big thank you. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, was National Education Support Professionals Day. Wasn't that yesterday? It's on our app. I did want to read something from that. Education support professionals include individuals who provide essential clerical services, custodial and maintenance services, food services, paraeducation, health and student services, security services, skilled trades, technical services, and transportation services. These people are essential to providing our students with a good education, one that includes reliable transportation, safe and clean buildings, nutritious food, and a helpful administration. Thank you to every one of our devoted education support professionals. It's kind of the people behind the scenes in a lot of the situations, but our district could not run without all of you, and you do a tremendous job. And besides that, like Corey, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Safe holiday.
Thanks, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Neese.
I just wanted to thank Mountain School for presenting tonight, and I sure wish that when I was a youngster that we would have had the morning circles. I just think that's fabulous, and it would make me very excited to go to school, I think. And just like pretty much ditto, because cross-country team, the band, I mean, they just continue to do fabulous. And just also just to say, kind of along with what Tim said, just thanks to our staff that continue to work with our students every day, and I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving.
Mrs. Neese,
Yeah.
Mr. Lewis said that he would get in trouble every day if he was there in the circle. And I agree with him. He probably would have. I knew him when he was a little guy.
Well, see, that would have been fun for me to see him get in trouble.
I will be brief. I too wanted to say not only Mound tonight with Mrs. Keller, but all of the presentations that we had when Mrs. Woods was here and others. It's always interested to hear what we have going on in our schools as they continue to go through school. So thank you for that. You don't have to be at school to do the breathing technique. We can do that at home in the morning as soon as you get up. So
I breathe every morning when I get up.
But Tracy, I wanted to say, as much as you come and Carol comes, and we need to have seats named after both of you for as many times as you have been here over the years. I've been here now 9 years, and I can probably count on a couple fingers how many meetings that you have missed. So thank you for coming, taking the time out of your day. And again, I would like to say happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully everybody has a safe travel if they are going somewhere. And I will move it on to Mr. Homan's not here tonight, Mr. Isaacovich, but before I move on to Mr. Espy, I will give you the opportunity to put your wishes out there as well.
Well, thank you, and I'll be brief. I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Have a great holiday and be safe.
Thanks. Mr. Espy.
Just want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I'm just thankful for the team here, and I also just want to say Mr. Homan and Dr. Blessing and myself got to go and see the band at BOA. It was an awesome performance. So just kudos to that program. I also like to say go Herd for our graduate that's going to be going to Marshall University.
Dr. Blessing.
Thank you. I think Mr. Isaacovich and I would like to thank the board for supporting the expansion of our satellite CTC program. So that's exciting, and we're looking forward to this new program and many more to come. So thank you. And then this Saturday, we have Girls on the Run. So I think Mrs. Woods we've got Medlerview and Bear. Is Mark Twain competing as well this year? Yes, it's going to be very chilly for us on Saturday morning, so we'll be bundling up and hopefully warming up quickly with some sunshine. So good luck to all of our girls competing and running. That's exciting. And also, just a plug, if anyone knows a substitute teacher, substitute assistant, substitute bus driver, we are gladly accepting applications, I'm sure as every school is, but we don't want anyone to not think if anyone's looking for a part-time holiday job or future part-time job or full-time job. We are definitely looking and still hiring. So I'm sure Mr. Holman will appreciate that I let everyone know that. So. And yes, kudos and congratulations to all of our great student groups and athletes and performers. We're lots to be thankful for in Miamisburg. So, thank you.
All right. With that being said, may I have a motion to adjourn at 7:37?
I move that we adjourn at 7:37.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Toadvine and seconded by, I believe, Mr. Lewis. Daffler?
Mr. Daffler Lewis.
Oh, Mr. Daffler?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Mr. Espy, roll call.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.